again in studio, this time about coding, but also some simple forums together with pure forums with T. Of course, there are million different T in my structure, also together with my book. To understand different forms of the text stored together with CSS, but also HTML, it's not simple, but also to understand different forms of ventilation. To understand heart, it's also not simple, especially if you use mail. To understand different forms of coding and encrypting together with wallet, it's not easy. Some people also want to seduce you in different forms of things you do not like in your life. So in life, you must understand standards about yourself. To understand standards about yourself is very important. And once you understand standards about yourself, you are going to become a better person. That is very, very important to become a better person. But of course, it's not always easy. To understand pure forms is very important also when you are building different forms of the image. It is very, very, very important different relations together with the health, but also different forms of relations together with the industry in health if you want to become a better person. Sometimes that is not easy, especially for people that are more known. More known people, actually, it's not easy for them because they are very known and they do not need to work a lot for others. Sometimes it is easier to enjoy than to support others. To understand better and better life, it's also not easy. And sometimes when you think it's going to be very easy, it becomes very difficult. But that is life. To understand medicine, it's very, very difficult. Of course, you can like or dislike medicine, but no one cares what you are thinking about that. There are millions of different plants, but for me, do not plant anything on this planet. It is very important to live in universe, but also to understand the universal herbs. It is very important to build self and not too much others. If you are going to build others, you are going to fail together with others and with their community or their coding. To understand the codex about self is very important, and many people, many doctors might fail because they actually follow other people and would like to know more about others, but not about self. To understand picture is also important, but if you are not the most pretty, you should actually find thousands of other pretty picture. So if you are not extreme pretty person and you cannot build millions of photos like famous people, you should actually look for 1000 other people and build simple career on that. Of course, you must be respectful to any image and you should respect it like the image is yours. Of course, you should not abuse it, but you can use it for the health of this planet. The health is in interest of any known people. If they would not have health, they would die like any other person. Sometimes it looks that people that are known are very evil, but that's not correct. They are not evil, but sometimes they share different forms of the very evil picture or design that can seduce people thinking that famous are evil. It's very important to understand botany universe, but also the films made together with medicine. The herbalism is not easy, but millions of fruits made in our structure, also together with different forms of the code. The most toxic forms are actually the leaders, and you should actually forget on those elite leaders that actually seducing people. 365 actually. To understand different forms of vitamins is also not easy because the vitamins are in my book. To find those, it's very, very difficult and not possible with modern or traditional means. So if you are a coder, for you might be very difficult to find me unless you are going to purchase my famous book, which is an excellent book, but very, very difficult and full of different forms of vitamins. To understand holistic approach to medicine is actually quite difficult. Different body forms would appear, also different forms of structure together with the picture, and that together build pharmacy picture, which is extremely complex. Coders are actually prohibited to use medicine picture because usually lack of ethics and more like coffee code. To understand aquafresh is also important, but not any form of disease. To understand self. So to build self terms in health is very, very satisfactional for self. And most of people, like 90% in world, are not able to follow themselves. If you follow themselves, yourself, and your team, your friends, not millions of friends, but those three you like the most, you will find the real lemons. You'll find the real folks. You'll find the real beauty of life and not the drugs of medicine and coffee. Of course, coding is difficult, and sometimes people drink too much coffee. To understand grass and very toxic earth, it's also not easy because people actually expect that earth and lands are worth a lot. Well, they are worth unless you become sick because of nature and the land. It is important to understand millions of smoke in a land and different forms of nature that is extremely smoky and toxic. Of course, there are also different forms of the mushrooms appear on the land, and then you can actually imagine how toxic are the owners of the lands, houses, and luxury. To understand millions of foods that also appears on a land is not easy. You should actually think about that as a poison and not so much as something healthy. The astrology in universe is much different than this one on the planet and what people know about it because simple astrology also me explain in my book. It's not easy and it's full of wooden American forms. To understand those comedies is not easy, but also to understand different forms of the papermints which actually exist everywhere. To understand alchemy, it's not easy. And in life, sometimes you should not build more and more and more, but to build easy forms.